Hi, welcome to another video. It's Cara and it's time for my December wrap up. I have been a little bit dizzy this morning. I think just like some vertigo issues. The temperature's a bit weird and I'm a bit tired. And I had my hair in cute space buns and I took it out because it was not helping. We're gonna do this a little bit differently than normal. Normally I do my, also apologies if you hear fan noise. Normally I do my wrap-ups in reading order. This time I'm going to do it all the things that I don't own a physical copy of and then the things I own a physical copy of. So it'll be a little out of order, but we're just gonna roll with it. I didn't have a huge for me reading month this month. Can I turn you around a bit? I want to like put you kind of there. I didn't have a huge reading month. It was fine. It wasn't outstanding for me. I read a lot normally and it was a little below par on the amount, but I read a lot of 5 stars. So good energy. So let's get started. The first thing I don't have a copy of here is Skyward Volume 1, which is a graphic novel series set in a world where gravity turned off. And it was, I expected this to be fun and cute. I don't know who sold this to me as fun and cute. It was not. I was heartbroken. I gave this 5 stars. I would recommend it. It's only a 3-part graphic novel series, I think, but I haven't read further yet. I listened to These Violent Delights by Nika Nevermera. This is a dark academia story following 2 boys who get caught in this romance in, I think it's like the late 80s or early 90s. And it goes dark. That was my cat, as most dark academia do. I enjoyed this one. I didn't love it. I don't know if it was the narration or something, but there was something that kind of kept me distant from the characters. So I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't perfect, but it was good. I also read The Girl and the Goddess by Nikita Gill, which is a poetry collection. This is my favorite from her so far. I've always found her other ones like were not quite there as a collection for me, but this one's actually more like a novel in verse, but much more poetry. A novel in poetry rather than just a novel in verse, because sometimes novels in verses are just more about the formatting and the pacing than about like, this is a collection of poems that tell a story. And I thought it was so much better than her other work and it really got to me and I gave it 5 stars. I also listened to Taboo by Kim Scott. Yes, this is an Indigenous Australian story about a girl going back to where her dad was from, and she never really knew her dad that well, which is the Indigenous side of her family. And so she's kind of learning about culture as a teenager, but also investigating these horrific events that happened on the land. And it also has like a sense of personal trauma involved in the story. And it was a lot about trauma and grief and overcoming. And I loved this. I gave it 5 stars. Yes. Also on the tale of trauma, I read Dear Martin by Nick Stone. And this is a like epistolary kind of story following a black kid at school who is writing letters to Martin Luther King to like explore his own ideas of how racism impacts himself and his community. Really loved this as well. 5 stars. It was a really short audiobook, so I would recommend it. Like, even if you're like, I don't know if I'm interested, it was short, just give it a go, you will love it. I also read The Girl from the Sea, which is another graphic novel by Molly Knox Ostertag. This one is about a girl who finds a selkie and they've got a little romance going on. It was so cute. It's obviously sapphic. Had a great time with this one, would recommend. 5 stars. I also read the 2nd volume of Cute Mutants. This is volumes, but they're actually like it's a novel by S.J. Whitby. S.J. is a New Zealand author who writes, these are all like X-Men stories, but teenagers with kind of dodgy superpowers. Like our main character Dylan, they can all the inanimate objects around them talk to them. And it's funny, so funny. Their boyfriend, who is trans, is can like light things on fire when they're horny, when he's horny. What are some of the other ones? They're all like useful but frustrating superpowers, and they're like dealing with governmental stuff, but they're all a bunch of teenagers. It's super queer, great fun. As part of our polyamorous plot hole book club, we read 2 Christmas novellas. I'm not sure when we're going to get around to talking about these, but we're going to try and talk about them at some point. One is Her Christmas Cookie by Katrina Jackson, which is a novella that's set in a bigger series but apparently can be read alone. I will say I feel like you get a lot more from it if you read the whole series. I didn't, I just read that one. And it was fun, it was heartwarming, but we're going to talk about this more in the live show, but it had a really weird push towards like, are you going to have babies? It was a bit weird. The other one was 12 Spankies from a Secret Santa by Tia Fanning, which I did not like. I give this 1 star. I don't give things 1 star very often because often if I'm not enjoying a book, I'll just DNF it, so I don't rate it. But I did read all of this and I rated it 1 star. This is a domestic discipline and BDSM story. BDSM does not bother me in the slightest. Love reading BDSM stories. The domestic discipline I didn't quite get the appeal of. Went over my head a bit, made me feel a bit uncomfy, but I don't think that's like I feel like it might have been true to what it was trying to be, so I don't want to like give it a moral judgment on that front. It just was not for me. And then beyond that, a lot of the story building was incredibly cheesy, which it's like a short romance novella, so like it's kind of part of the parcel, but like I just couldn't get behind it. It wasn't for me, and I gave it 1 star. I didn't like any of the characters. I also read Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica, which is a thriller about a woman she's a doula, and there's a mystery of a girl who was missing, who's been found. That woman went missing. There's another woman who went missing, and there's women missing, but we're following multiple timelines, trying to solve the mystery, and the girl has like been found again. She like escaped from somewhere, so there's like this found girl and 2 women who went missing, and it all kind of like ties in together. I gave this 5 stars. This was so good. I don't read thrillers very often, so if you're a common thriller reader, you read thrillers all the time, I don't know how this would work for you. I don't read thrillers very often, but when I do, I tend to love them. So keeping that in context. 5 stars, loved this. It was outstanding. It was twist after twist after twist. I didn't know what was coming. I was mind blown. This ended up on my best books of the year, if you've already seen that. Loved it. I also read The One Impossible Labyrinth by Matthew Riley, which I gave 5 stars. This is the final book in a 7-book series. I do think the first 3 books of the series are the best, which came out a long time before he continued the rest of the series, if that's something you want to know. And then after book 3 it kind of dipped, but this I think was a solid conclusion to the dip. So like if you're taking from book 4 to 7, this was the best of that bunch in my opinion. This whole series is like a Indiana Jones-esque solving the world from these like prophecies and things that are like brewing, and people are trying to gain power from them. He's trying to stop assholes gaining power from them because he's like a good guy. Like it's very action adventure movie with clear like good guy bad guy stuff, but so fun. I will say, and this was true through the whole series, there's a thing that ends up like it discusses that all of these events that are happening that they're trying to like gain power from and stop other people gaining power from are like once in every 3,000 year events. They're meant to recycle. And in this book in particular, though I think it was also true in the other ones, they're destroying things as they go. Like the bad guy's like, I don't want you to do that, blowing things up. It ends up becoming like a you need to do this to save the world event. How are they going to save the world in 3,000 years? How are they going to do it? How are they going to save the world once you've destroyed the equipment you're using this time? How? Tell me how. You ruined it. You ruined it for everyone. So there's that. I give this book 5 stars. And the final one I don't own, I did own The One Impossible Labyrinth. My mum and I share copies. It's at my mum's house. And Flower Crowns and Fearsome Things was the last thing I read in the month. And it's a poetry collection from Amanda Lovelace. I like her poetry. I don't love it. Fast, quick, Instagram style poetry. It was alright, I gave it 3 stars. Now let's get on to the things I own physically. I might also need my little cheat sheet because can I remember what I rated things? Maybe not. I literally have the stack here, so it's because I didn't want to move the stack that we're doing it in this order, so I'm just picking up what's on the top. The first one is Armistice by Lara Elena Donnelly, which is the sequel to Amberlo. I gave Amberlo like 3.5 stars, rounded up to a 4-star, but my biggest problem with it was that for the first like 80% I was so bored, I didn't know what was happening, but then the last 20% was amazing. So I thought, maybe this one will carry off on the amazing front and not have 80% boredom. That was not the case. I didn't get very far into this. I was maybe 100 pages in and I was so bored I can't be bothered, so I DNF'd this. It just was not doing enough for me for like what I needed it to. You feel? Next up we have The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas, which was also a miss for me, unfortunately. But I finished this. I ended up giving it 2 stars. It was intriguing enough and short enough for me to stay right through to the end, but like I really didn't get it. This is dark in theory. We're following a kid, Jake, who can see ghosts, and there's a poltergeist who's affecting him. The poltergeist is a school shooter, and there's so much darkness in theory, but it wasn't matched by the tone of the writing, in my opinion, and I had a hard time like feeling connected to any of the characters, which I don't know why. I just really struggled, and the action didn't work well for me either, so it was just a whole lot of like So it's 2 stars for me, but I think people could really love this. I want people to love this. I think it's just a me quirk. One book I did love was The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. This is a gothic horror following our main character Jane, who is autistic and is having a hard time like in the era. It's like an alternate history fantasy, like it's in another world that's like based on historical like Britain. She is like, she's got some trauma from the war, and so I think her parents died in the war, and she's got some trauma from that, and her caregivers are moving back to the city that she has a lot of trauma about, and she really wants to stay in this little country town, and she's like in her late teens, early 20s, and so she decides to arrange for herself a marriage with the local doctor in this little village, and he's all like, I don't want to marry, but I guess if we do, you have to follow these strict rules, and one of them is that he has to spend every night at his family mansion and she's never allowed to go there, but obviously things conspire against them. The rules get broken, and it's a gothic horror, so you can kind of see where it's going from there. I loved this. I can see why some people don't. It is very classically gothic horror. It has vague senses of like a Jane Eyre retelling, both in the name and like some of the themes. I loved this to pieces. It was 5 stars. Next up we have Daughter of the Burning City by Amanda Foody. This is a circus fantasy following a main character who has no eyes. She's blind, but she can see. She just has no eyes. So people treat her differently, and it's following a magical mystery. She has no eyes, but she can like make these friends. Like she can create other people, like imagine them into being, and so she has a whole little family she imagined, and they start dying, which she didn't think was possible. So it's like a murder mystery of these imagined imagined people. I listened to this on audiobook. What did I end up rating it? 4 stars. I thought it was really strong. It was Amanda Foody's debut. I really enjoyed it. The narration was fun. Yeah, it was just like a really solid YA fantasy, if you feel. Another really good one was Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. This I gave 5 stars, I'm pretty sure. Yes, this was is a shorter novel following what's our main character's name? Georgina. And her twin sister come from a family of witches, but it's very like fabulous, like the world is normal, but The island they live on has some weird things, especially to do with the weather, and normally witches in this family get their gift before they turn 18. Georgina does not have a gift yet, and her sister floats. And then they also have this bird that they believe is an ancestor of theirs that comes to the island every year, and a whole bunch of people like ornithologists come to check out the bird, but the bird doesn't arrive this year, and it's like kicks off from there. I loved this. It was stunning, has such interesting themes, including like sexual assault and like, I don't know, it was just so good. I give it 5 stars. My room is overheating. It's heating up and I'm overheating, but we're almost done, so let's keep going. The next book is Master of Jinn by Paisley Clark, which is a continuation of his Dead Jinn in Cairo. Like, they were a series of novellas, and this is like the first full length. I don't remember what the series is called. We follow Fatma as she's solving the mystery of a person who claims to be the master of all jinn. I loved this. It's like an alternate history steampunky Egypt, and it's so good. I gave this 5 stars. I gave it 5 stars. I would 100% recommend it. It was so good. I also listened to Belle Revolt by Lindsay Miller on audiobook. This one I gave 2 stars. Honestly, this is so forgettable. I can't remember much about it anymore. I know there's a like rich girl and a poor girl who trade places. My biggest problem for this is like it wasn't compelling. I can't remember it very well, and the magic system didn't always make sense, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a while since I read this. I didn't love it. 2 stars. Very forgettable. Another DNF for me was The Raven Tower by Anne Leckie. I was trying to listen to this on audiobook. I didn't get it, and then I tried to read a little bit of it physically. It was doing nothing for me, so I DNF'd it. I was not sure if I would like it in the first place. I just could not, I was confused, and B, the writing style wasn't for me. We have 2 more things to talk about. The first is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Obviously I read both part 1 and part 2. I rated this as a whole and I gave it 4 stars. I didn't love it, which everyone like loves it, which I did not. I think it has the potential to go places, but for me this was a bit slow and a little bit repetitive. There's one character that I was like not on board to read from their perspective that often, and they kept popping up. But 4 stars. This is a high fantasy series. It's going to be like a 10-book series. This is book 1. I'm going to be reading book 2 in January, at the end of January, maybe into February. We'll see how it goes. It wasn't all it for me, but like I enjoyed it. It was 4 stars. It was a good time. I've heard it only goes up though, so I'm hopeful Words of Radiance will be a 5 star book 2, if you will. And finally, the last book on my list is Prelude for Lost Souls by Helene Dunbar, which I listened to on audiobook. This is if you like The Raven Cycle, you might like this. It's like a magical realism, no, not magical realism, fabulism, set in a small town of mystics. They can like talk to ghosts and tell the future. And we're set in that town, and we follow 2 boys from that town, but also a like world-class pianist who's looking for like the missing parts of a piece, and it all ties together. The only critique I have of this, because I loved it from start to finish, the only thing I didn't like was that the audiobook narrator narrated the pianist, she's Russian, in an American accent, and it just like, I know why it felt dumb. But otherwise, I loved this to pieces and would 100% recommend it. I was pleasantly surprised by this. I was thinking it would be like a 3-star, blazing 5-star. It was so good. So those are all the books that I read in the month of December, wrapping up this year that was 2021. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you read any of these, I'd love to chat to you about them. And thank you so much for watching. I'm not feeling 100%, like I'm a bit dizzy today, so I'm gonna go take a nap. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.